We are officially starting Season 3 of Tales from the Darkside, and this is Episode 1, and it's called The Circus. Finally, George A. Romero has been awoken from his slumber and reminded, hey, George A. Romero, this is your series, Tales from the Darkside. You need to save it. So he's pitting this episode, and it's a great one. You can only wish that George A. Romero was more involved in this series. Because throughout the 90 episodes, he seems like he's involved in about 5 of them, and then away making his big Hollywood movies. Will there be zombies in this one? Well, kind of. An investigative journalist by the name of Bragg mysteriously had his car crash driving through the backwoods in order to do some investigating into the circus. So his car is broken down, but it's okay. He was here to investigate the circus anyways. So he gets to his location and is immediately greeted by Dr. Nis, who's the ringmaster of the Exhibition of Wonder that tells its audience that all the monsters that they experience in this circus is real. This is not any fakery.
Circus! Before your very eyes, man into werewolf. Bring the children. How much exactly is the investment, Dr. Nis?
I only require enough to feed my troupe of performers.
And the set design for this is once again elevated to a higher level. Tales from the Darkside episodes only have a couple characters, so you're not going to see a full circus in action here, unless they use like stock footage. But they don't do that. This is a circus during its off hours, and we get many different locations and lots of monsters in this one. Just like George A. Romero gave us in episode 0, Trick or Treat, he knows what the audience wants. Not just one villain, but several villains, several makeup effects, and blood. Give me blood! The first one he runs into is this vampire. That's what he's supposed to be. I think it seems to be harkening back to the Nosferatu vampire, as opposed to these New Age vampires that sparkle when they're out in the sun. While it's hard to choose between Team Edward and Team Jacob, I think I'm going to go Team Nosferatu, because the makeup effects on this are great, and it really is a horrifying creature, and can really serve in its own movie, since it's going for the gross out, decrepit vampires as opposed to a suave Brad Pitt. It really is a breath of fresh air to have some well thought out writing. I praise Michael McDowell in this series because he does what George A. Romero does so well, which is making this world feel believable. And the actual investigative journalist is actually asking pertinent questions. He's not just getting freaked out and running away. He's probing Dr. Nis to see if these monsters that he's encountering really are real. So first he asks him about feeding the vampire, since we see the vampire take a bite out of this animal. And he's questioning him whether he does that in front of kids. This is supposed to be a kid-friendly circus. And of course Dr. Nis says no, they don't show that part to kids. Sometimes have them kill a snake. He comments on the makeup effects, and then Dr. Nis takes him into the backstage.
Each performance, we invite the ticket holders for a visit backstage here, a sort of sideshow.
The journalist Bragg constantly brings up how violent this circus is. You see a vampire eat an animal, you see a werewolf gnaw off this bone, he almost gets attacked by a Frankenstein monster. I'm aware it's Dr. Frankenstein, but they didn't give him a name, so I'm calling him Frankenstein. His head falls off, so there's some goofy violence. And it seems that George A. Romero is making commentary about the amount of astronomical pushback that he got from his movies and their violence level, since he seems to be talking to the audience with this investigative journalist saying, I can't believe you're letting children see this. I can't believe how violent this is. Night of the Living Dead was quite violent when it was released in '68, but at least that one was in black and white. When he went on to do Dawn of the Dead, he actually got an X rating and had to release it unrated. So yeah, George A. Romero has had some back and forth with the MPAA and was always pushing the envelope when it came to violence. And he's commentating on it right now. Maybe kind of making fun of himself, or the type of pushback that he would get about his movies. Oh, you're allowing children to see this? You're so bad, George A. Romero.
Feel only to that basis, most vulgar mentality.
So the ringmaster walks Bragg to the final expedition and the final monster of this episode. A corpse that seems to be the mother, the living blood of this circus. And the ringmaster still has a bit of a predicament. Since the Frankenstein monster lost his head, he needs another head to replace it. This is the reanimated corpse. The reanimated corpse has to have a reanimated head. And Well, Mr. Bragg is a very good head on his shoulders, I guess you could say.
No, in a sense of wonder, there is creatures of myth and legend. No, of the experimental, component parts of the dead ops.
I'm going to give The Circus a solid 8. It really is a great episode. It shows what you can do if you just put a little ingenuity into the filmmaking process. I mean, really, this is an expedition for George A. Romero to show off different makeup effects and different monsters, but it really does work. Since it seems like Mr. Bragg is doomed from the start, Dr. Nis slowly walking him through these hallways until his ultimate demise showcases that this circus is very much real, but also has enough plausible deniability to continue operating, and he's not going to let this journalist get in the way. The ringmaster Dr. Nis was played by William Edward Hickey, and he was Uncle Lewis in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And he has a very recognizable voice. When I first watched the episode, I was like, I've definitely heard this from somewhere, and yeah. He voiced the character Dr. Finkelstein in Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. This episode was written by George A. Romero himself, who's most known for the Living Dead series. But he also did some interesting movies like The Crazies and Martin. In fact, his run through the 70s is pretty impressive. He also has had a bit of a fight with his distributors and specifically getting copyright on his movies. You can find the full movie Dawn of the Dead posted on YouTube, which is pretty rare because usually they take stuff like that down. But since George A. Romero's catalog, their copyright is just wackadoodle all over the place. People are holding rights, not releasing it. Some of it, like Night of the Living Dead, doesn't have a copyright. So you can actually find his movies fairly easily, quasi-legally, I guess you could say. In fact, Night of the Living Dead was probably the most popular public domain movie. If you buy any of the horror movie packs, they usually put it in there. And I always wondered why, so I looked it up. First print of Night of the Living Dead didn't use the title we know it as today. Instead, it referred to the movie as Night of the Flesh Eaters. A worse title. One of the working titles of the movie. However, before release, the title was changed to its more familiar version. But when changing the title card, the distributor forgot to put the copyright notice on the final print. Which, in 1968, that meant the movie was not protected by copyright and instead was placed immediately into the public domain. So I always thought it fell into the public domain later, but no, it seems like it was in the public domain pretty much immediately, because they screwed up. George A. Romero saw little to no money from the film despite it grossing over $30 million at the box office. And that's $30 million in 1968, and it was shot on a budget for about $100,000. That one's gotta hurt. Next up is episode 2 of season 3, I Can't Help Saying Goodbye, with a little kid who has magic powers, and it's written by, oh boy, Jules Selbo. It does feature Alison Sweeney, though. Check out our playlist for all episodes of Monsters, Fear Itself, Cowboy Bebop, Black Mirror, Pet Shop of Horrors, and of course, Tales from the Darkside. Thanks a lot.